Good afternoon, Mr. Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, Carleton graduates. It is my pleasure to present Sally Armstrong. Sally Armstrong is a woman for all seasons, a human rights activist, journalist, and award-winning author who has traveled extensively to cover stories about women and girls in conflict zones across the globe. I can only highlight this afternoon a few of her accomplishments because you don't want me to stand here all afternoon. I'm sure you'd rather hear from Sally. And Sally began her career as a writer for Canadian Living, morphing from stories about homemaking to beginning her lifelong commitment to exposing the suffering of women and girls in conflict zones. She became associate editor of Canadian Living and then moved on to become editor-in-chief of Homemakers, where she claims that she found her voice. She is quoted as saying, "We were basically breaking all the rules. We were a subversive little magazine that served up lasagna on one page and tried to change the world in the next." And she's certainly done the latter, covering the stories about women and girls in zones of conflict in Bosnia, Somalia, the Middle East, Rwanda, Congo, and Afghanistan, bringing the reality of the sufferings of women wherever there is conflict. Her long career is marked by some of the most important stories in women's magazines, including Chatelaine. She has won many awards, including the Gold Award from the National Women's Magazine Foundation, Amnesty International Media Award, the YWCA Woman of Distinction Award in Communications. Well, her awards are too numerous to list. They do include a Member of the Order of Canada, 7, and today that will make it 8, honorary doctorate degrees, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Canadian Journalism Foundation. Sally was also a member of the International Women's Commission, along with Palestinian, Israeli, and 12 international women with a mandate to assist with the path to peace in the Middle East. Sally has written several books about the women of Afghanistan. In 2002, she wrote Veiled Threat: The Hidden Power of the Women of Afghanistan. In 2008, following up on that, she published Bitter Roots, Tender Shoots: The Uncertain Fate of Afghanistan's Women. And in 2007, she published a book of fiction, which I understand is loosely based on one of her ancestors, entitled The 9 Lives of Charlotte Taylor. Ascent of Women, Our Turn, Our Way, was published in 2013, and a revised version was published in 2014 called Uprising: A New Age is Dawning for Every Mother's Daughter. Gathering material for these books required a great deal of courage and putting herself in danger, which she has done repeatedly over the years. Sally has just returned from Nepal, and her article Aftershock appeared in the National Post online yesterday, poignantly describing the extensive damage, the pain and loss, the panic to have shelters ready and crops planted before the monsoons, and the continued hope for the future. Mr. Chancellor, in recognition of outstanding contributions to the advancement of the rights of women and children through her scholarship, personal experience, and highly acclaimed writing, I request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, upon Sally Armstrong.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Governors and upon recommendation by the University Senate, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Congratulations. Very well deserved.
Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Chancellor, Chair of the Board, Madam President, graduands, and honored guests, thank you so much for honoring me this way at Carleton. You know, the other honoree was a teacher here at a time when I was playing sports against this school. When I was a student at McGill, we would travel to Carleton, and they're among my happiest memories. I won't go into the details about the parties after the games, but this was a school everybody wanted to be part of. And I just am thrilled that I am now an official part of Carleton University. But I have a message for the men and women sitting in front of me who are graduating today. If I had my life to live over again, I would start today, here, on this campus, in this country, and at this time. Every single one of you can contribute to a change that could be heralded as the biggest thing since the discovery of the wheel, the Industrial Revolution, landing on the moon. Your final year in these hallowed halls has been charged with calls for change. It has been charged with calls of action around campus rape, around the behavior of men like Jian Ghomeshi, around Facebook postings from dental students who are inviting sexual assault, around young Turks who scream obscenities at female reporters on television. There is a single fix for these woes, and it lies with each one of the graduates sitting here today. Put an end to it. Remember, it was people like you who changed the world as we know it during the last 100 years. It was a citizens' movement that ended slavery in the US. It was young people like you who marched for gay rights, for civil rights, for women's rights. It was a citizens' movement that launched a struggle against corporate interests and government insensitivity. And it was civil society that led to campaigns to stop landmines, to stop violence against women, to fight giant corporations and governments, to preserve our rights to privacy, to our non-renewable resources, to conservation, to clean air, to water. It was always your group that led those changes. The movement you need to lead today affects every single one of us. You could call it the gender movement. It's time to start it. You know, I remember being on assignment in Cairo during the Arab Spring, and I was doing a story on the women at a young women's center. I wanted to interview the 20-something crowd who were demanding change for women and girls. And I was shocked when I got there to find out that half of the people were young men. But you know, the same thing had happened to me in Afghanistan. I was doing a story for CBC Radio Ideas on a very provocative young group in Afghanistan called Young Women for Change. And when I went to their meeting place, again, I was shocked to find half of the people there were young men. And I said to the people in Cairo and to the people in Kabul, what's with the guys? We didn't invite the men to march with us in the 70s. And both the people in Cairo and the people in Kabul said exactly the same thing back to me. They said, we will never get to the finish line unless we walk together. Such wise words, of course, from young people, words that we should take on today in this country. You know, there's a new documentary out. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called The Hunting Ground. It was written and directed by Kirby Dick. It is an expose of the rape crimes on U.S. college campuses and the institutional cover-up and devastating toll they're taking on students and their families. But you know, one of the things I learned when I watched the documentary was most people collectively think, oh, those crimes, they're committed by all the frat boys, they're committed by all the football players. Well, that is wrong. What the documentary tells us is that it's the same 10% who reoffend again and again and again because they have impunity. You are the 90%. I call on you, in fact, I dare you to put an end to this, scourge that is older than all the other movements, the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, the women's rights movement put together. It's time we walked toward the finish line hand in hand. You know, the earth has shifted under the status of women. That shift is altering the most intractable files we've ever had. It's altering poverty, conflict, violence, and it's improving the economy. Who can argue with that? It was the Millennium Goals economist Jeffrey Sachs who said, "The status of women in the economy are directly related. Where one's flourishing, so is the other. Where one's in the ditch, so is the other." Well, you smart young men and women have known that for a decade. But when Jeffrey Sachs says it, it gets traction. And now that's the conversation around the world. I'm not just talking about the places where women have been historically oppressed. I'm talking about this campus, this year. You may have more women graduates than ever before, but as long as women are targets of assault and misogyny and ridicule, we're not even near the finish line. You know, convocation ceremonies invariably invite the young, enthusiastic, freshly minted graduates to enter a brave new world. In your case, as you know, the world is neither brave nor new. It is stumbling in a toxic mix of terrorism, pollution, and gender disparity. But you are the ones who can right those wrongs. Remember philosopher Hannah Arendt? She said in her analysis of good and evil, evil thrives on apathy, and it cannot exist without it. Hence, apathy is evil. You see, when injustice encounters inertia, it uses that passivity exactly as though it were approval. And in the absence of protest, evil is nourished, and it can flourish. But so often, we don't act, right? We think, what do you expect me to do? I'm only one person. I'm not rich. I'm not famous. I'm not powerful. What if I got involved and made things worse? But people worry about where they stand in this situation, but it's all of us who need to stand together. People say, if I got involved, I could look foolish. But you know, people who do not intervene when something is amiss give tacit permission for injustice to continue. Innocent bystander is sometimes an oxymoron. But I can tell you I would put my faith in the collective power of the graduates sitting here today over the terrorists and the cheats and the misogynists any day. The power of people like you, up close and personal, is the most daunting response to evil. But let me tell you, the success of your future will depend very much on the size of your vision. Pay attention to it. A vision can take you to places you've never been before, or it can lock you in small, confined spaces that will make you yearn for the past rather than reach for the future. You are ready to go. You're entering the world of work, and believe me, with everything we're talking about, you will find work eventually. But work needs to be more than just finding a job. Work needs to be a search for daily meaning as well as daily bread, for recognition as well as cash, for astonishment rather than complacency. You demand leadership that has vision. You demand a job that values you more than the gross national product. You demand work that engages your heart as well as your mind. And you demand things you can believe in as well as invest in. And remember this, you are what you condone. And you are the generation that everyone's looking to for change. You know, despite the current statistics that I'm sure you're worried about, I have every faith you will launch extraordinary careers, and I hope you will be the ones who launch the gender movement. You, this gathering of men and women with your newly minted knowledge and talent and moxie, you are the art of the possible. Let history remember you as the class that cares, the class that started the gender movement. I wish you well, and I offer you my heartiest congratulations on your splendid achievements here at Carleton University. Thank you.